Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Running the Bases. I'm your host, Michael Garaffa. I'm joined today by Marco Peralta, Ryan Blank, and a very special guest today, Joe De Mayo. We're very happy to have you here. Joe is a very special guest today. He is a writer for SNY for the New York Mets and a host of the That's So Mets podcast. You are a very big name in the Mets world. Joe, thank you for coming on today.
You got it. Happy to do it.
We are really happy to have Joe here, obviously a very influential person. We're always happy to pick people's brains here on this show, so we're very happy to have you here. So, Joe, personally, myself, Marco, is having some connection issues. First of all, for everybody that's wondering, we'll hopefully get that resolved. For right now, it's just me and Ryan. But I've been trying to tell these guys all off season about the Mets, how good they're looking. And from a journalistic perspective, obviously, it's hard for me to be objective because, I'm young, trying to learn the journalistic, objectivity. For you as a person, this is going into it. First of all, what do you think of the Mets entering the 2021 season?
I think they have a really strong roster. I mean, on paper, it's probably the strongest roster they've had in some time, not just in everyday talent, but then when you talk about the depth that they built, which I think is frankly the biggest thing. And I think a lot of people overlook it because I know a lot of people are upset that they didn't sign George Springer, that they didn't sign Trevor Bauer. They didn't get, a premium free agent, but they traded for arguably the best shortstop in baseball. And then they added a ton of depth. So that way, the Mets are a team that, historically has a lot of injuries. And I think they're much more prepared to deal with those injuries the way they built the roster for 2021. And, I think they're every bit as good as the Braves or any team except the Dodgers, frankly, in the National League. That's the only team I would say is definitively, no question, better than the Mets on paper. But it's why you play 162 games, and we'll see how this season actually goes.
And now, before we get into your guys' questions, Marco and Ryan, I do want to ask you, as a Mets fan, I do struggle with objectivity. These guys can vouch for me. So how do you stay objective as a journalist to keep your personal team bias out of it?
This is more advice for Michael, Joe, just letting you know, okay?
Yes, it is.
To be honest, I am okay that I'm a fan. The way I write is, I write obviously as, a regular journalist, and I try to be fair and objective across the board, but I let my fanhood slide in a little bit. I look at it nowadays, I think journalism and writing's a little different nowadays, unless you're on the beat. If you're a beat reporter, it's a little different, because you're just covering the team day to day and you have to cover it in that specific way. But, I'm kind of just like a columnist and stuff like that. So I let my fanhood show. I have no problems having the world know that I'm a Mets fan. But I just think I try to have a realistic sense of baseball in general. And when I talk about the Mets, generally speaking, I've always been a bit of a pessimist, and they've given me many a reason to do so. But, I let my fanhood show a little bit. Obviously, you find that line between sounding like a fan that's just uninformed versus a fan that is informed. And that's ultimately what I like to do. I like to sound like an informed fan.
That was a good answer. I like that. See, I can be a fan. I can be a Mets fan, because in journalism school, they tell you that you got to throw your fanhood to the side. And, I know these guys can vouch too. In our classes, they're like, oh, you can't be a fan. You've got to, be objective, and, you've got to just do that. So it's good to know that you can have that fan side. And I think that's important. I'll open the floor up to you guys. Marco, you were here first, so we'll let you ask the first question, if your connection's working, because I know Marco's connection's really struggling right now, and I think he's frozen and can't even.
I was going to say, he's either very good at staying still or frozen.
Yeah, I think he's frozen. Ryan, I'll let you ask the question, since you're the only one here who seems to not be having connection issues today, because Nick said that his entire building's Wi-Fi is down this morning. So
it's weird. I am frozen. I don't know if you guys can hear me, but I am frozen.
Yes,
we do. Now.
There you go. You're just there we go.
I think it was one of those things where he unmuted himself the second he heard us say that, and it came through 2 minutes later. Ryan, we'll let you ask the first question.
Weird. My building is always bad with their Wi-Fi, so this is nice to know that it's not just my building. But thank you for coming on, Joe. My first question would be, Pete Alonso really struggled this past year compared to his 2019 season. What do you expect from him in 2021? And could you see him as a bounce back candidate?
Oh yeah, I definitely see Pete as a bounce back candidate. And let's not forget, I mean, granted the batting average was down and he chased everything. It was beyond obnoxious to watch. Like breaking balls in the other batter's box he was swinging at. But he was on pace to hit 45 homers if he played a full season. So the power is going to be there. I think Pete's going to hit 40 homers. It's just you really hope that he can kind of find an in-between of his rookie year and the 2020 season. And, if he could hit 250, 260, get on base at like a 340 clip and hit 40 homers, that's a super valuable asset. So I'm optimistic about Pete. And, the 2020 season's a tough one, right? I feel like obviously it was 60 games. It was shortened. How seriously do you take stats? And I feel like very often people pick and choose what players they want to believe they're 2020 and then what players they don't. Like, I was not in on Trevor Bauer. I'll be the first to say it. From day one of the offseason, I did not want him on the Mets. When they were going to get him, I was dreading having to deal with that. But, I think he bailed us out by going to the Dodgers. But, everyone's like, oh, he had Cy Young in 2020. So clearly he's on the path to being a Cy Young candidate going forward. But then you have a guy like Pete who, I think your question is very fair, Ryan. But, a lot of people are down on Pete now based on his 2020 season. So it's a funny thing that obviously has never happened before, right? We haven't had a 60-game season where we had the judge off. So it's kind of interesting. But, yeah, I think Pete's a good bounce-back candidate for sure.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about that is I also, entering 2020, I had said it even before COVID happened. I expected Pete to have a down year. I saw it coming. I was like, he's coming off of this incredible rookie season. And I even said it on the show a few times. I said, I'm expecting a bit of a down year from Pete. I think he's going to get in his head. I think he's going to try and hit like 70 homers and he's going to overswing. And that's exactly what happened. And I think this year, and oftentimes is the case, that's why they call it a sophomore slump. Oftentimes after that sophomore slump, those guys really bounce back. They get back into the shape that they were in their rookie year because after that rookie season, they kind of think, oh, well, I'm good. I've proven myself. I don't need to work that hard this offseason too. And they also tend to pull back on that. And I think that shows, and that's a big reason why they have that sophomore slump. So I think that kind of revitalized him, getting himself back. I don't think he's going to ever be a guy who's going to hit, 280 with 50 homers. I just don't think that's possible. I think he's someone who will maybe be a 240, 250 hitter who can hit 40 homers a year, which is great. I'm happy to see that. That's a great first baseman for any team. So I agree. I think he's going to have a bit of a bounce back year. I don't think the average might necessarily reflect that, but you never know. I mean, he showed signs of greatness in his first year where he had stints where he could go, 6 for 7 with just some line drives. And I think that's the kind of player he can be. Now, Ryan, I'll let you get another question considering that Marco and Nick are still trying to fix their Wi-Fi's before they get here because, we have an open floor and you do have to leave soon too. So,
yeah. And I just have a follow-up to that. Personally, I know a couple Mets fans are afraid of he's becoming that traditional power hitter who strikes out and chases a lot of pitches, but will hit 30, 40 home runs. Are you personally afraid of that?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit for sure. I think he's an aggressive guy, and kind of to Mike's point, like he's the guy that goes for it. He does want to hit the long ball. There's, I mean, that's the way he plays his game. But I think having Chili Davis back in the building will help him because it was a weird year where Chili Davis, the Mets hitting coach, if you're not familiar, he did not come with the team in 2020 due to COVID concerns. So they were doing he had a bat. If he had a bad at bat or a bad couple of bats, he couldn't go in the dugout, figure something out with Chili, and then go back and have a good rest of the game. He had to wait until he could go on Zoom with his hitting coach. So kind of a really weird dichotomy there. But I think having Chili Davis back will help him a bit. And, maybe hopefully Pete learned something last year where you don't need to put everything on your back. It's not all about, you don't have to hit a homer every time you step to the plate. It's a very good lineup around them. I mean, they added Francisco Lindor. They have Michael Conforto still and JD Davis and Jeff McNeil, Brandon Nimmo. James McCann came in. They have a lot of offense on this team. So Pete doesn't need to take everything on his shoulders, which I feel like maybe a little bit last year he felt that way, that everything was on him. And I think this year he can not do that so much, and hopefully that'll lead to a little less chasing, to your point, and really going for everything. Because home runs are great. I mean, they're guaranteed runs, but we'll take doubles. We'll take singles and move the runners along. There's enough offense here. I mean, the Mets had the best offense in the shortened season. They had the highest OPS in baseball, so they can hit. There's no question. So Pete needs to just relax, not put everything on his shoulders, and I think that'll be better for him this year.
I completely agree. Now, Marco, it seems like your connection has been better for the last minute or so. So let's get your question in, your first one, while we have you.
So here's the issue. I don't know if my question was answered while maybe someone was thinking the same question as me.
We only talked Pete Alonso, so.
Oh, okay. Sounds good. So, Joe, my question to you is when it comes to the rotation, you have Marcus Stroman, you have Noah Syndergaard, you have Jacob deGrom. So in your opinion, you look at this rotation, do you think it's like a top 3 type of rotation in MLB?
Absolutely. I think the Mets rotation is very good. And I think what's going to be interesting to me is how the innings are going to go, because obviously there's some concern across the game about innings in 2021 in general, just because there's 60 games last year. So a lot of people, they obviously didn't throw many innings, but you also throw in Carlos Carrasco that they got from Cleveland, who's frankly, to me, the number 2 starter on opening day. So if I'm making my opening day rotation, Carrasco's starting game 2. And then you have, some depth, like they also added Taijuan Walker late in the offseason that I think is going to be a nice back end guy for them. And David Peterson, who had a really good rookie year, now competes for the number 5 spot with a guy like Joey Lucchesi, who had some nice success with San Diego in 2018 and 2019. And yeah, I think rotation-wise, they're set up really well. And then obviously when Syndergaard comes back, everyone else just kind of goes down a rung. So then, David Peterson might end up in AAA. And then you also have a guy like Jordan Yamamoto that they got from the Marlins, Jared Eichhoff, who had some success with Philadelphia. So I think all in all, the rotation is set up to be a top 3 rotation in baseball for sure.
I agree. And I also, interesting note on David Peterson there. I know, Ryan, you have some thoughts about David Peterson, but just so that I've been saying to everybody that I've spoken to about David Peterson, that an interesting stat from 2020, Jacob deGrom had a 6.2 hits for 9. David Peterson had a 6.5. That's how good he was in that level. Obviously, his walks per 9 was at about a 4.5. But with a 6.5 hits per 9, that's something you really don't see very often from pitchers. And I think that's a very important number for people to keep in mind. Now, Ryan, I know you had yourself unmuted. What do you got?
Yeah, so you're seeing a lot of teams who are thinking about going to a 6-man rotation throughout this season. When Syndergaard returns, could you see the Mets going to a 6-man rotation? Because each guy's going to drop down a spot, meaning that they could have Peterson be that 6th guy, potentially?
I think at times you might see it, but I don't think it'll be a full-time thing. I mean, let's be honest. You don't want less Jacob deGrom starts if you're the Mets. So I don't think you want to go a full-time 6-man rotation, but there might be times where it makes sense to do it because you might want to give Noah a break here and there coming off Tommy John, or, Marcus Stroman might as well, have had a major injury. He didn't pitch at all in 2020. So you might want to stretch out some of these starts a little bit. I think at times going with the 6-man rotation would be beneficial, but I wouldn't want to do it too much because I want as much Jacob deGrom out there as possible. That's the best way to win games, is throw the best pitcher in baseball as many times as you can.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's something that a lot of people are. I mean, the Mets have historically been known as a team that, like, they're very 5-man rotation. Like, they very rarely will do that. Like, they'll skip a start, but I can't remember the last time I've seen the Mets do a solid 6-man rotation. So I think that'll be interesting.
I think you'll see a little more of it this year, kind of across the game. It's not really a common thing in baseball, right? I mean, almost everyone is a 5-man rotation, and you'll dabble 6 here and there. But I think this year with innings, you'll see a little more use of arms. And I think that's why it was important that the Mets added those extra arms so that they were 7-8 deep, rather than, just worrying about having your 5 and just, if you have injuries, then that sucks. They're in a better spot to get some injuries and deal with it.
Absolutely. And depth, so important, something that we will see a lot of. So I wanted to ask, obviously Nick not here. I wanted him to be able to hear this question, but as a journalist and as someone who is a, baseball writer, what is some advice you have for young aspiring journalists like us?
Just take writing wherever they'll let you do it. That was my advice. I mean, I started writing before school, like in high school. I was 15 when I started writing on blogs, and that was quite some time ago. I've been writing for more than half my life at this point. But yeah, write anywhere that'll take you. I think is you want to get practice in, you want to get those reps in, and then frankly, when you're pursuing, your let's call it real journalism job or whatever, you want to have some work behind you that you could show. It's like, oh, I've been writing for this blog and that blog, and you could show some of your work that you've done. And I think that it's like anything else in the world. Practice makes perfect, so to speak, right? So write anywhere you can, anywhere that'll let you, accept the fact that blogs generally don't pay you, and just get your reps in. And it's like almost anything else in the world. I mean, you get your reps in, and the more you write, the more comfortable you are, the more you'll find your writing style, because that's kind of where we started, right? Where it's like, how do you balance being a fan or, whatever? You have to find how you write. I mean, the last thing you want to do, you want to stand out, right? So ultimately, the fact that you want to stand out, the last thing you want to do is just write like everybody else does. Like, you want there to be a reason when an article is posted by you or column or whatever, that people are motivated to read it because they're like, oh, I know that Mike does something unique, so I want to read what he writes. Because, I mean, being a beat writer is a tough one. Like, I don't envy them because they're fantastic writers, but you basically have to write the same story as everyone else every day because you talk to the same people every day, the same manager, you get the same quotes. So it's honestly a tough gig for them. But if you're doing like columns and things like that, find your own lane of writing and what works for you and make it unique so that way people want to read it, because that's really what it's all about, right? You write it so people will read it.
Yeah, that's very true. Uniqueness is very important. So obviously very important life advice from Joe. Marco, I know you didn't have the chance to ask 2 questions, so if you've got another, hit us with it.
Well, I have like 2 quick questions. So it's
Absolutely.
one's Mets related, one's career related. So in your opinion, what is the thing that's missing to say with confidence that the Mets are a contender for the World Series, or do you have that confidence right now?
They could be a World Series contender. I think if their rotation is healthy and they get to the playoffs, that rotation can carry them deep into October. But if you want to tell me what's the difference, their defense, I think, is going to be a bit of an issue. The lack of a DH kind of really screwed the Mets more than almost anybody else. Brandon Nimmo has to play center field, and he graded out as the worst defensive center fielder in baseball last year. Dom Smith has to basically play left field, and he's a first baseman. It's neither of those guys' fault that they're not good in those positions. They're just not. Like, Nimmo would be above average in left, Dom would be above average at first, and then you could DH Pete. So defense will hold them back a bit, and then how the bullpen performs, I think, obviously, is the biggest one. They're out Seth Lugo for a little bit. He might not be back till May. When Lugo returns, you'll have Edwin Diaz, Lugo, Trevor May, and then it's really kind of question marks below that. Like, what do you get out of Juris Familia? What do you get out of Dylan Betances? A young guy like Miguel Castro, who has electric stuff but doesn't seem to know where it's going. Like, what are you going to get out of those guys? So to me, it's bullpen and defense would be, if we reconvened in October and the Mets got eliminated in, I don't know, first round, whatever, and it's like, why'd it happen? Chances are it would be because of defense or bullpen, I guess.
I agree. Marco, you got?
Gotcha.
Looks like Marco. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, no. Hopefully the
you were
question
having
goes
connection
through.
problems.
But yeah,
No, go ahead,
sorry,
Marco.
Joe. I apologize for that. Sorry. So my question is, hopefully this gets through. I'm not a writer. I'm more like of a broadcaster, like podcast guy. So what kind of advice? Because I know you do writing and podcasting. So because I'm more comfortable podcasting and doing like shows in both languages, English and Spanish. So like, what kind of advice do you give those types of folks?
So for me, this is going to sound funny, but find someone that knows more about podcasts than you do. Cause I honestly don't know a ton about podcasting in general, but my co-host on That's So Mets podcast, Connor Rogers, he does NFL draft stuff for Bleacher Report. And now he's getting into baseball with me on That's So Mets. He's like a podcasting pro. So he kind of does all the smart person stuff for podcasting. I just come on and talk and, be personable. Obviously be able to speak, which the fact that you could do bilingual is awesome. And yeah, to me, it's just be personable, have a good voice that people want to hear, and, produce a podcast with content that people want to listen to. And, for That's So Mets, I look at it as the podcasting game for the Mets isn't really that much. I mean, I give credit to guys, Darren's my buddy over at the 7 Line. Darren has Orange and Blue thing, but that's a seasonal show. The guys at Barstool have a podcast. There's a couple other Mets podcasts around, but it's not really a heavily tapped into market. So that's why I think from our perspective, our podcast so far it's only a few months old. We just started in September. So it's really a new show, but, we're pulling in, 2,500, 3,000 downloads an episode. So, pretty quick, decent rise, I guess. But yeah, ultimately, I think podcasts are best when they're multiple people. That's one thing I'd say is you definitely want more than one voice. So that way you could go back and forth and it becomes more of a conversation rather than it just feels like someone's just spewing a bunch of information at you.
That's true. Valuable information there. That's something that's important. You think about it, you look at the Yankees, they've got like Talkin' Jake and those guys, they do their show and they're very popular with that and they get a lot of views. And I think if one Mets podcast were to gain traction, like let's say yours, I think it would take off as like the Mets podcast because there's just none out there. And that would be something that, if we had more traction here, I would absolutely start my own like little Mets thing to do because no one does it. It's funny that no one's taken that advantage. I think for the Mets have great writers. That's something I think the Yankees don't have as well. The Mets have incredible writers that write for them, and the Yankees are kind of more the broadcast side, which is something that intrigues me. So, Joe, how much time you got? Because I want to kind of gauge out what we want to finish.
10 more minutes or so would work.
All right, that works for me. So if Ryan, Marco, if you guys have any more questions, hurl them out. If not, we can move on to the next segment, but I'm sure you guys have some stuff.
Shoot. Oh, my bad. So this is a career-related question as well. So coming out of like, I can hopefully assume that you went to school, right? You went to college, right?
Yes.
So coming out of college, just how did you deal with that kind of mentality of, I don't know if you got a job right out of college or you were like, okay, so how do I get my start? Or like, is someone going to give me an opportunity to do this that I love to do? So like, how do you deal with that kind of pressure of just potentially landing your first job?
So for me, I worked a regular job right out of school. I didn't jump right into, writing. I was writing on the side. So I found, I was writing at a bunch of different Mets blogs and things like that at the time. And I just kept grinding and kept trying to find someone to give me a break. And ultimately, SNY.TV was willing to bring me on. And, that I hate to make it kind of shortish, but I worked a regular job knowing that it's not, I wasn't going to go to school, come out of school, and then just all of a sudden, voila, I got myself a paying writing job doing, what I want. Because ultimately what I wanted to do was write about the Mets. I didn't want to, relocate. I didn't want to write about another team. I wanted to write about the Mets because, kind of like I said up at the top of the show, it's like I'm a Mets fan. And I didn't want to, lose my fanhood. I know they tell you that, but I didn't really believe in that ever. I was just like, I'm a Mets fan. I want to write about the Mets, but I want to learn how to write the correct way about the Mets. So that way I can show a little bit of my fanhood, but it's not like I'm just some Homer fan that doesn't know what he's talking about or writing about. So yeah, just having some patience, I think it is key, but it also depends on what you want to do. So, if you're coming out of school and you're like, I just want a paying, writing or whatever gig right out of school, and I'll work anywhere. And you send around, you'll probably be able to write about something. It just may not be what you ideally would want to. And I was prepared to, after school, work a regular job and write on the Mets on the side until I found a break within the Mets. So it all depends on kind of like your life situation, I think. But for me, I was willing to be patient. I know many people are not. And ultimately, in my opinion, it paid off. So now I get to write about the team I want to write about. I get the podcast about the team I want to podcast about. And, it's groovy to me.
And not only do you get to do that, but you get to write on the Mets TV website too, which is even more impressive to me. I mean, for you to come right out, I mean, like, yeah, you had another job, but your first job really in journalism was for the Mets television station. I mean, I think that's incredible to me, because another thing they tell us at journalism school, like, you're not going to get that right away. They always say, oh, you won't get that. You're going to need to start somewhere small. But, you're living proof that you can do that. Like, you can. It's impressive. It's incredible. Incredible to me.
Starting small is important. And I did. I mean, I think the reason that SNY had interest in me had nothing to do with the fact that I went to school. Like, I don't think that was really, like, that was kind of like, all right, good, he did that too, cool. But ultimately, I think it was just, I built up a following doing independent stuff, writing on blogs. By the time SNY had, I don't know, 12,000 followers on Twitter, just doing the blogging that I do. Not that it's weird, like, social media followers like matter. I don't know why, but it does. So that caught their attention, and here I am now, I guess. But yeah, no, for sure, I think starting small is important. And kind of like I said, being willing to do this at a place that may not pay you. Your payment is an experience, and just save everything you do. That's what I would say. So if you write, because you never know how sites will handle things, once you decide to leave them or whatever, save everything you write. So that way that's your resume, really. I mean, You fill out a formal resume. It says you went to school, wrote here, and it's just like, oh, and here's the work that I actually put out into the world, and not just, oh, I'm a writer with a journalism degree and hire me. It's like, here's everything I've actually done. Take a look. And I think that works.
I also think that's important because of what happened yesterday with the Mets. I don't know if you're aware of the one website that deleted everybody's authorhood. That was a big deal that happened yesterday with the Mets website, where all their former employees, they just took their names off of it. Yeah. And it's important for you to save that stuff because they can just do that whenever they want. And then it's as if you never wrote it. And that's, hours and days of stuff. And you also mentioned a few times that, you wrote for multiple websites. So do you think it's more important to focus on, maybe going to, 2 or 3 websites, writing for them and writing good content there, or focusing on one and putting out, like top notch, like fully focused stuff?
I'd say write wherever you can, but it's kind of, everyone has their own real path. To me, I just wanted to get as much out there as I could. So I was willing to write at multiple places. I never committed to writing at any one place. I just was willing to put content out anywhere that would take it. So that's how I look at it. I look at it more, go anywhere that you can, that'll take you. And, eventually, if people don't read website A that you write for, they might read website B or website C. So obviously don't stretch yourself too thin. Like, there's gotta be a line, but if you could find 2 to 3 places that are willing to take your content, then I think that's ideal. Cause then, you even put in your Twitter bio, like, writer for blank, blank, and blank. And they constantly are pushing out your content. And, there's different viewers for every site. Like, there's people that don't read SNY.TV. There's people that read, Metsmerized or whatever other blogs are out there. So my perspective always was, you never know what the audience is, and just be willing to write at multiple spots. So that way you capture audience here, audience there, all over the place. And then you are better prepared when you finally do get that job that you want, that you have the experience and you built up a following doing so. Because having a following, it's kind of weird. Like, it's weird to say that it matters, but it does, right? Like, you want people, that matters, like clicks and how many people read the articles and things like that. That matters to all these sites or papers or wherever you write for. Like, people reading your stuff is very important. So having a following is important. And I think the best way to do that is to write anywhere you can and, just put content out there for people to digest.
Incredible stuff. Very, very great stuff. Now, Joe, if you want to stick around, we can do one of the combinations that I've got going on here. Alrighty. Works for me. So this next segment that we have here on the show is called the combination game. This may or may not be a recurring segment on the show, whether it whether we like it or not. That's a matter of how we enjoy it. So the combination game, basically what we do is I grab some random players. Yes, Ryan.
I gotta head out. I have to get ready to go cover softball.
Okay. Thank you, Ryan, for being here.
Joe, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it.
You got it, Ryan. You take care, all right?
Yep, you.
And now, for the record, Ryan was a Royals fan, so I think with the Chiefs stuff, yeah, he's a Royals fan. He loves to rub it in my face. That's okay. And Marco, I know you're keeping your loyalty quiet for I don't know, whatever reason. If I were you, I'd be bragging about it day in and day out. Oh, here he goes. He's going to brag about it. Here he goes. Oh yeah, there he goes.
Hey, Trevor Bauer's going to screw up your locker room. Enjoy.
I'm just there for you. Since you're talking about content, I'm just there for the vlog content basically now.
Hey, that's a good point. There's going to be serious content coming out of LA this year.
Yeah, that's very true.
See, I'm not a mess up kind of guy. Like, I'm not gonna rub it in your face. The only person I rub it in your face is Michael, because he likes to do the same thing. But I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go. Hey, let me put my hat on. Yeah.
Hey, here you go.
You know what I mean?
Hey, hopefully one day we'll get one.
Yeah. Goodness. One day. So let's get into the combination game, shall we? So I take two players. One of them is random, completely randomly picked a player here. And I'm then grabbed another player that I think would be more of a well-known name. And we're going to combine some of their best aspects to make a super player here. So the first one I've got is Logan Morrison and Justin Morneau. Now, these two guys, two first basemen, not very similar career numbers. Obviously, Justin Morneau spent a lot longer in the major leagues than Logan Morrison has, even though Logan Morrison still hasn't retired yet. But I know, Joe, you remember the days when Logan Morrison would hit some bombs against the Mets with the Marlins. He was definitely a very big force there. But similar guys in terms of their power guys. These are guys who are not necessarily going to kill you with the average, but Justin Morneau did have some good stuff. So when you look at it all together, what do you think? I'll start with you, Joe. What do you think are some of the aspects you should combine between the two players to make one overall really great player?
I love how you got so random. Like, I was waiting for like Ronald Acuna and someone. Justin Morneau and Logan Morrison. Jeez.
Yeah.
All right.
I go deep with the randomness here.
Hey, I appreciate it, but it makes me think. I know Logan Morrison was a better defensive player than Justin Morneau was. So I think you'd rather have Logan Morrison's glove. Morneau was kind of an all-around just better hitter. I mean, he was an MVP candidate, and Morrison is, like you said, a guy that had some pop, but I don't think he ever really had more pop than Morneau. I don't have their stats in front of me. Was their batting average for their career like wildly different?
Yeah, Morneau batted 281 and Logan Morrison batted, 238.
Okay, yeah. So basically, I guess you just say, give me Morneau's offense and Morrison's defense. Is that too simplistic, I guess?
No, that's fine. There's, like I said, some of them are going to be really tough, and some of them you're going to be like, okay, well, this guy, the only thing that was better was his speed, and give me the rest of the other stuff. Marco, what do you got?
Well, it's pretty simple. I'm a big power guy. I love power. So you look at the difference of Morrison and Morneau, it's almost basically doubled when it comes to the home runs, and also with their hits, man. Like, Morrison 792, and then you look at Justin Morneau's at 1603. Like, it's pretty obvious that the most consistent and everyday hitter was Justin Morneau. So obviously you want his bat every single day. And at the same time, his consistency of being on the field, like he has almost 2,000 more at bats than Morrison. So his consistency and his health, I would say, compared to Morrison's, obviously, because everyone has their stench of health. But I did like Morrison's glove a whole lot more. But also, Morneau's WAR, that is absolutely crazy. 27 WAR compared to a 4.3 for Morrison. Yeah, that's a big difference there.
It is very big difference. So we agree here. I mean, it's Morrison's glove and Morneau's bat. So Joe, we're gonna let you head out on that note.
Yeah.
Very big thank you for coming on today. Very happy to have someone who's a very good writer like you. We're glad. Obviously, we had the issues with Marco's connection, and Nick never even got to join us here. I'm sure Nick had some good things to ask you, but you're always welcome on at any time. I'll shoot you an invite. You can come on the show at any point. I'm sure Nick will be happy to ask you questions then. But thank you again for coming on. You can plug yourself. Where can we read you? Where can we hear you? Anything, what you're working on right now, just let us know.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me. It was fun. Follow me on Twitter at PSL2Flushing, and that's TO, not the number 2, and get that damn banner out of here. So PSL2Flushing on Twitter. Check out my writing at sny.tv, and check out That's So Mets podcast at That's So Mets pod on Twitter, and it's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that good stuff. Rate us 5 stars ideally. Subscribe, share to your friends, leave us reviews on Apple Podcasts because all that stuff matters for the algorithms. So do all that good stuff. And appreciate you guys having me. And we'll catch up soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Joe, I had to bring it out because obviously Michael's being like, "Oh, show off." I'm like, "Bro, I'm not that." I'm like, I'm not that kind of dude, but all right, I'll guess then.
Yeah,
so, it's all right. Hey, I'll be the same way when the Mets get theirs. When the Mets get theirs, I'm gonna be a complete utter jerk, and I'm okay with it.
I'm not saying to disrespect you, but I'm like, Michael, you trying to take these colors out of me? I'm like, I'm not this kind of guy, but I guess I'll just do it then.
Do it, bro.
Hell yeah!
All right.
It.
No.
Thank you so much, Joe.
All right, thank you so much.
I appreciate you. We'll talk soon.
All right,
absolutely.
Bye. Thanks, Joe.
So that was Joe De Mayo. Great to have him on. Really great.
So messed up, dude. Like, I'm not a show off.
I need you to show off your Dodger blue. Come on, man.
Why?
You won the World Series. You gotta.
There's a difference of being just of being like a just show off for like your friends, but like to every single person. I'm not that kind of guy, but I was like, all right, I'll just show off to Joe. I'm like, I'll do it. But all right, sounds good.
Joe's a great guy, great writer. Make sure you check out his stuff. You can always check him out at sny.tv. He's also tagged in the Twitter post that I made earlier on. So if you guys want to check that out as well, you can go and give him a follow. Make sure you're keeping up with the stuff he's doing. He's writing great stuff. Obviously, I mean, whenever you write for the team's TV website, you're clearly doing something right. So make sure you go check him out. Maybe we'll be there one day. I know, Marco, you and I are broadcast guys, but still, you never know. But
you're more of a writer than me, I'll tell you that much.
That's true. I mean, I write a little bit, but I would still rather be in broadcast than anything. But I mean, most of the guys you're going to have on here are probably going to be writers, which is fine. I know Danny Vietti, who we're hoping to have on Wednesday. I know last time, you know what? I'm not going to give it the jinx because last weekend I said Justin Toscano today, and he couldn't make it. He's in Florida for spring training, so I'm not going to give the on-air curse. So we don't know who's coming on next show. Hopefully somebody. But, it's good to have all these guests on. We're learning a lot. And obviously it's unfortunate that Nick couldn't come out for the show today and that Ryan had to leave early. But regardless, Marco, it's just you and I now. I mean, we're back to this is the first podcast guest ever for those wondering.
I just love how every time it's just me and you, we just automatically think of going back to the first podcast. It's like it's a sweet moment.
The OG day. That was you were the very first. Now don't get me wrong, happy to have 4 of you guys here. I'd rather have 4 than just 1. But I always think about that. I'm like, man, I'll never forget that first picture we ever took. you and I getting ready to record for Blaze. I think it was like my fourth ever podcast, and had Marco on. And well, here we are, a whole year and a half later. I know Ryan's gonna be getting rid of him soon.
Yeah,
but
he's waiting for me. Like, hey, when are you leaving?
He's like, hey, when are you getting out of here? We got Parker ready to come on. And that's no disrespect to Parker. Obviously, Parker can be a guest. Like I said for season 3, I wanted to have more guests on. That's something that we are living up to, and it doesn't just stop at main writers. We might have someone like Parker coming on, or we already had Dom on for a breaking news show. People like that. I'm going to be having my buddy Brent from work. Hopefully, one of my student friends, Jared Carver, coming on. Maybe
I was about to say student. You got students now? What's going on here?
One of my students, yeah. Just a matter of
give them back their tuition, bro, because you're a freaking Mets fan.
It's okay. It's all right. As
No,
Joe
it's not
said,
okay.
I'm allowed to be a fan. I can be a fan and do it. So I'm doing it. Here we go. This is me being a Mets fan and hosting a baseball podcast. But that's what it's all about. You can't always pick sides. So here we go with the second combination. Now this one I'm not going to lie, probably should have done this one knowing that Joe was only going to stay for one, because this is a little bit more difficult. But for this second combination here, we have Rogers Hornsby and Stan Musial. Now, these two are not only elite players, but they are some of the best baseball players to ever walk the earth. I believe that they made it to the top 10 when we did our 64 hitter bracket. So these guys are elite. They are guys you do not want to mess around with, and certainly had elite numbers. Now, Marco and I have the stats in front of us, so you guys obviously watching do not. But just to give you an idea, Rogers Hornsby in his career batted .358 with 301 home runs. He had a .434 on-base percentage, a .577 slugging, and a 1,010 OPS. First of all, any OPS over 1,000, you're incredible. Stan Musial had 331 for his batting average, 331 batting average, a 475 home runs for his career, 417 on base percentage, 559 slugging, and 976 OPS. So right off the bat here, I've got a couple things that stand out to me, but I want to know what stands out to you.
Oh, it's pretty darn easy for me, obviously the power, but if you look at the thing that it makes me even like surprised a whole lot more is just look at the hits. Like it's almost about 700, 800 more by Musial than Hornsby. But then you look at the at-bats too. Like the at-bats for Hornsby, it is 8,173. I can't talk today. Sorry. But the at-bats for Musial, it's 10,972. So I'm like, interesting. So I would add the at-bats and see if Hornsby keeps that average he has to make that a more elite player, and just add the power of Stan in the mix.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I would do. I would take Rogers Hornsby's batting average and his contact and Stan Musial's power. And honestly, if you do that, you probably would have the best baseball player ever. That's like,
maybe.
And like Joe said, we were going with randoms before. And I mean, this one was completely random. Don't get me wrong. Rogers Hornsby was the first player that came up when I got this. But I mean, this is just an elite matchup here. I mean, two incredible players. Unfortunately, Rogers Hornsby did pass away, and so did Stan Musial. But I mean, if these guys were living in today's world, they probably could be incredible players in today's game. I mean, it's just that's how good they were, standing out at their time. I mean, Hornsby played back in 1915 to 1937, and Musial played from 1941 to 1963. So there was about a decade difference between Hornsby and Musial, but still, I mean, they're playing at about the same time.
I think it's crazy. Look, if just look at their pictures, you look at Stans and you look at Hornsby, just the fact that like it's a 10-decade difference.
Yeah.
But you have Hornsby's black and white picture, and he looks like he's playing in like the late 1800s. And then you look at Stans and like he's like mid 1900s, but they're like just a decade difference. I think that was pretty funny.
It is crazy how those kinds of things happen. You can find that out.
Just because it's color. Just because of the color. That's it.
I know. It's so because those are the kinds of things. Obviously, Rogers Hornsby is Rogers Hornsby, but I mean, we won't really ever get to see pictures of him in color, like of just his face. It's funny how those things happen. Same, especially with the guys that are from the early 1900s that date back from the 1800s. So, I mean, I came with only one more of these matchups prepared because
Michael, keep talking. I'm gonna connect my laptop. All right, keep talking.
Okay, I'm gonna keep talking. I'm good at just keeping talking. So I came with only one more of these matchups prepared because, well, I'm not gonna lie. I first of all expected Nick to be here longer. Well, I expected Nick to be here in general, and I didn't know how long Joe was going to be hanging around for. So I just knew that I was going to be going with three. So I do have one more matchup here. Perfect timing, Marco, as you get here right before the last matchup. One more matchup here as we get ready. This is Adam Rosales and Brian Roberts. Now, interesting, Adam Rosales, a player who, I mean, really didn't hit for much average, didn't really hit for much power either. Adam Rosales, a 226 career batting average, only 48 homers, 291 on base percentage, 365 slugging, and a 656 OPS. And then you have Brian Roberts with a 276 batting average with 97 homers, 347 on base percentage, 409 slugging, and a 756 OPS. So right away, drastic difference. Obviously, that is there's no question about it. However, Adam Rosales was a fairly good defender. He was not a bad defender. I'm not going to pull up his defensive stats on my computer because it'll completely lag me out, and we do not want that because I'm the host of the stream, so that'll ruin things. But, I mean, honestly, looking at this, it's the same as the first matchup. Give me Brian Roberts' bat and Adam Rosales' defense, and I think you're going to have a fairly good player at that point.
Yeah, because if I were to be honest with you, I wouldn't take anything from Adam Rosales and add it to Brian Roberts. The only difference is like Roberts has legit double home runs to Rosales, but like besides that, like compare 367 to 1527 on the hits, and then you look at the batting average, it's 226, 276 for Roberts, so like I wouldn't add anything from their offensive side of the bat for Adam Rosales to Brian Roberts, but I will take his glove because I know that Brian wasn't the best defender, but I did know that Adam was a better defender than Brian Roberts. So I'm gonna go with the glove, give it to Roberts, and just keep Roberts' bat. That's what I would say. And like even the at bats too, like. Roberts has had 5,000, over 4,000. I think 4,000, if my math is correct, or nearly 4,000.
It's almost 4,000.
I bet, yeah, almost 4,000 more at bats than Rosales. So like that speaks for itself.
And only three more years in the big leagues for Brian Roberts too. Mm-hmm. So that was a combination game. I don't know. We might do more of these in the future. We can do. I would love to do it with all four of us. See how that would work out, and maybe do a little bit more different players. Like I was thinking, like take Adam Rosales and Chris Davis from the Orioles and mix them two, because that's what you're really going to get a good combination there. But whatever works. I think that these kinds of things are fun. Always good to change things up here. But look at us. We have time to spare. Wow. I can't remember the last time we've had time to spare on this show. This is not only do we have time to spare, but we've got 10 minutes to spare. So let's talk about spring training, shall we? Hey, we've got time. I'm wondering what's going on here, Marco.
I'm just happy this is back for a very long time. You could turn on the TV and just pick any game you want and watch a baseball game. Like, it is amazing. Just the fact that like you're able to wake up and realize that there's baseball today. Like you can actually watch a game. We compare the feelings of like, oh, pitchers and catchers report today. Oh, spring training games start today. Next thing you know, opening day is here. And that is one of the best feelings ever in baseball. Obviously, when you play postseason baseball, it is good. I'm waiting for you to feel it again, Michael. but it's
I'm waiting
it's
for
one of
4
the
years.
best. For 4
5
years?
It's been 5 now.
Years. Well, you'll get. I hope you get it this season. Hopefully, if
Me
not,
too.
we'll see.
I do too. I really do. I hope this year's the year. So let's see what's on tap, shall we? It's Sunday, February 28th. The first spring training games are today. As you can see, I want to just point out this beautiful banner that they have up at the top on MLB at Bat. Look at that gorgeous banner. That's so pretty. Why don't we have that during the regular season? Alrighty, so today, Sunday, February 28th, there are 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, I already lost my count. Hold on. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games. 7 games that are taking place at 11 o'clock Arizona time. That is 1 p.m. Eastern time. Let's read them off for you. We've got the Pirates and the Orioles. For the matchups, we've got Chad Cole. I'm going to need to tap on some of these names because I don't know all these guys because they're spring training guys. And Tommy Eshelman. So Tommy Eshelman and Chad Cole are the first matchup of the day between the Pirates and the Orioles. But I think the more exciting matchup of that 11:05 start time is the Cardinals and the Nationals. They're at the home of the Cardinals. We've got Eric Fetty taking on Jack Flaherty. So Jack Flaherty, we got an ace starting on the first game of spring training, the only ace to go so far. Then we have the Red Sox and the Twins. We have Nate Eovaldi taking on Devin Smeltzer. Then we have the Phillies and the Tigers. We have Ivan Nova taking on his former team, the Tigers, and he's taking on Tyler Alexander. So how about that? Nick getting his first spring training game in just a little over an hour. Then we have the Braves and the Rays. We have Mike Wright. I believe that's Mike Wright, unless it's Kyle Wright. It's Kyle Wright. Wow. Look at me. I really just called Kyle Wright, Mike Wright. Goodness. And then we have a guy who was on the Royals last year who's pitching for the Rays. That is Chris Ellis. So if Ryan were here, he'd be probably like, oh, Chris, he's so good. He's going to be the best. Then we have 2 more 11 o'clock games. We have the Marlins and the Astros. It's Daniel Castano versus, I believe that's Brandon Bielek. Okay. I don't know where I got the name Christian from. But then we have the Blue Jays and the Yankees. We have Anthony Kay, former Mets pitcher for the Blue Jays, taking on, who's this Yankees pitcher, Michael King for the Yankees. So those are all the 11 o'clock games. Those are the Grapefruit League teams. Then we've got a couple of the Cactus League teams right here in Arizona. I don't know, Marco, if you're going to be getting out to any games. I know I've got tickets to one game, but we wanted to go. I did, yeah. Off StubHub. You got to go on StubHub. They're extra expensive, but it was worth it. It's so worth it.
Which game did you get?
I'm going to see the Angels in like a week and a half in Tempe Diablo. I don't even know who they're playing. I just know that I'm going to a game and I'm beyond excited about it. So some of the Cactus League games here, we have the Reds and the Indians at 1 o'clock. We have the Dodgers and the Athletics. We have the Angels and the Giants. So, wow, Jose Quintana getting his first start with the Angels right there. Rangers and the Royals. Oh, we know what Ryan's doing today. He's got Irvin Santana on the mound. Didn't even know he left the Mets. He was in the Mets farm system a couple of years ago. The Brewers and the White Sox. The D-backs and the Rockies. D-backs also have their ace, Zach Gallen, on the mound. And then we have the Padres and the Mariners. Good. Keep an eye on that game as well, because the Padres have Adrian Morejon, a big prospect for them coming up. He is starting their first game, and then Marco Gonzalez for the Mariners. He is their ace. So we've got a good pitching line today. And I know that I don't know what the rule is, but I know that there's some teams that are only playing 7-inning games today, and are going to be playing 7-inning games a lot. I know that there's an option that you can play 7-inning games. That surprised me. I didn't really understand why. But so yeah,
it's
7-inning games.
It's because of there's no split squads.
Oh,
so like I guess that has something to do with it, because they don't want to really try to really overwork their everyday starters for the season, something like that. So maybe that's a reason why. But there's no split squads this year, so that's maybe why. That
could be a part of it. That probably does play a role. You don't want to stress your guys out too much or work your guys out too much. But I mean, right away, that's pretty good. And then some teams tomorrow that aren't playing today, the Mets and Marlins get started tomorrow. That's exciting for me, getting to watch the first Mets. I know you're playing tomorrow. Well, the Dodgers are playing tomorrow.
I played today too.
You playing today? Hold on.
Yeah, I won against the Athletics.
Oh yeah, I said that. Stupid. So yeah, I unfortunately I'm the only one in the group that doesn't play today. I think the Mets are actually the only team that doesn't play today. With our luck, good, just the lucky Mets. Tomorrow, a matchup that you want to look out for though. 1:10 p.m. Arizona time, 3 o'clock Eastern time. Cubs Padres. You got Kyle Hendricks and Chris Paddock on the mound. I mean, it's spring training, but hey, you want to watch some good pitchers pitch in the first inning of a game? That's a game to watch. So Spring training's upon us. I mean, what else can we say? It's exciting as all get out. I'm beyond happy to be having spring training back. I mean, it's the time of year. I mean, it's exciting. Like I said, I got tickets to a game. I really wanted to go to a game with the four of us, but that might not be possible.
No, I'm kind of hurt right now, bro, because like you got games. You didn't even tell us you were gonna get games tickets, so we could have like, hey, we're all getting game tickets, or like Michael, you could have been like, hey, I'm going to an Angels game. Who wants to come with? And you did.
It's only 2 tickets are available.
Oh, so you're. Oh, okay. So, all right. Sounds good.
I told my mom that the first game I went to this year was going to be with her. That's why I didn't ask you guys. For the record, I told her that the first game was going to be with her, and then the next game I would go with you guys. So we have to try and figure that out. We can get out to a game as a podcast group show.
We'll see.
We'll see. We'll try and get out there. Tickets
how
are
much
super expensive this year.
You know how much a Padre Dodger game is right now?
Probably a lot, considering that I got seats in the right field corner for $60 a piece. It's I'm assuming that a Dodgers Padres game is probably upwards to 80 to 90.
You're way off, brother.
What is it, like 120?
No, sirree.
Is it more than that?
Yes, sir.
For sitting where?
I saw it right now. Starting from $222.
Oh my God. That's insane.
Yep.
That's unbelievable. Oh my goodness. That's robbery. This is not the regular season. They better be playing them 9-inning games, because if they don't play 9 innings, that's a ripoff. I want 2 innings of my money back. Gosh.
Dude, so check this out. For 2 tickets together,
that's $500 with taxes.
No, for 2 tickets together, because they sell only 2 tickets, right? $334 each.
Oh,
each.
Oh my God!
That's the cheapest one right now. Now let's try to add. Yes. Now let's see where that 200
or the webs or the dollars.
Oh, I'm on StubHub, bro. So 4 tickets. There's where we see the 222. But hey, Michael, let's go to a game, you and me. Let's go watch Dodgers Padres.
Oh, yes. We better be served caviar in those seats.
Bro, like that's almost what I paid for the freaking World Series game ticket.
That's ridiculous. That's just about what you would pay. That's incredible. Well, spring training's here. It's expensive, but it's here. That's all that matters. Thank you all for coming out and listening today. Thank you for tuning in. We're glad to have you guys here. Always great to have you. We're happy to have Joe De Mayo, who came on in today. We have Marco, obviously, here. Nick couldn't join us. Ryan was here for about half an hour. But thank you for watching, listening, anywhere you did it, on Blaze, on YouTube. Thank you all. We appreciate you guys every single week for coming in. We will be here on Wednesday again for another great podcast show, whatever we are. But thank you all for watching. We'll